I'm so very excited to have you on today. What I would love to do first is to kick off. I have worked with you for some time now. However, sometimes I find it challenging to simply say to someone, "This is the work that I do with Linda." Like, I know how powerful it is, and like I love working with you, but being able to simply just explain it is challenging sometimes. So I would love for you to share a little bit about how you explain it and what it is, and kick off from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't worry, because I was always a little bit, how do I explain this too? Because my whole background is science. Like, my whole life has been about, being the one who knows and having all the science that backs everything up. And, that was going to be my dream career. It was going to be in medical research. And long story short, things took a few different turns. And what I actually ended up qualifying in was chiropractic. Still very science-based from my aspect and that sort of thing. I did a lot of rehabilitative care. So looking after people with scoliosis and putting their neck curves back in that went missing from accidents and things like that. So that was sort of my background, but I love neurology. And I also realized that there was a lot of missing links. People, no matter who you are and what's going on in your life, there's always this desire for something more, something greater. And so I also had a love of personal development. And I got into that myself back in 1998, which probably, I don't know, you might not have even been born then. I don't know.
I was born. I was a ripe old age of 10.
There you go. You're a 10-year-old. So here I was doing, firewalks and all that sort of stuff back then. And, I really did enjoy it, but I also found that coming out of those events or participating in those programs, I'd go back into life and it'd be great for a while. And then I really wouldn't get anywhere and I couldn't work out what was wrong with me and where, things were sort of, how I could let myself down so badly. And, I've invested a lot of time and money and energy into all these things and I'm still not getting anywhere. I've got, I did do some things. I built a really successful practice and all this sort of stuff, but I still had that sense of there's something missing. There's something I'm not nailing here. I'm really missing out on something in life. And of course, as things happen, I had to sell my business because I got divorced and there was, and it was just the typical pattern of build all this thing up, work really hard, follow all the things that the personal development and the business coaches that I employed told me how to do it. And I'd get my result and then somehow I'd just make sure that it all disappeared. And I went, there's got to be something wrong with me. There's something wrong with what I'm doing. I'm broken. So what's going on? And then I came across the intuitive development work, which primarily through actually my partner, Craig. He was doing the work when I met him. He was doing a William Whitecloud workshop when we first dated, which is quite funny. Yeah. And here we are together nearly 10 years later and well entrenched in William's work and further explored it through Robert Fritz's work and that sort of thing. But essentially the whole thing is the same about using that there's actually nothing wrong with us. It doesn't matter who you are and what you think is wrong with you. It's not about that. It's just you're in the wrong structure. And so the whole thing is about being aligned to a structure that actually works. And the cool thing is that it can sound a bit woo-woo, because we talk about things like, there's your vision, you acknowledge your current reality and just focus on that. And then things happen, right? We get inspirations, we get ideas, people bump into us and all of a sudden they're really helpful and they make things happen for us in favor of what we're going for. And that sounds really woo-woo. But from a science background, it actually makes sense to me because I know there's parts of our neurology that actually works in the background that we don't have the awareness to. And because we're not aware of it, we put it down to something mystical. It's actually not. It's actually really scientifically based if you look what goes on in the background as we're orientating to creating things that we love. And most of the time, we actually get ourselves all tangled up in trying to fix ourselves because we think it's us. And it's not. It's not us at all. So you can waste, like I did, 15 years trying to fix yourself. And then you realize, it was just I was in the wrong structure. I was just not orientating the right way. I was looking at where I was stuck and what was wrong with me and why I wasn't feeling fulfilled when actually it was just a matter of changing how I need to go about creating the things that I love. And now life is, instead of this, back then it was a juggle of how do I get my relationship to work, which didn't. How do I get a really successful business to work, which, well, it did, but then it didn't. I had a staff member take a whole bunch of money out of it while I was also trying to deal with a divorce and also trying to bring up kids and all this sort of stuff. I was not juggling very well at all. Whereas now I've got the structure in place that supports all the facets of my life, and it's effortless. Well, I wouldn't say effortless. I still need to take action. I still need to do things, but in comparison to what I was doing back here and doing poorly to try and keep all the balls in the air at once, I can now do that confidently, easily, and it just flows, and each facet supports each other rather than competes with each other, which was happening on the other end of things in my old way of doing things and focusing on trying to fix myself at the same time. I don't know. Yeah. So I don't know how I didn't go insane.
Yeah, like it makes so much sense. Like you're working your butt off and doing all the right things based on what you've been told.
I know.
It's not working. It's like, well, where else do I look? Like I'm the common denominator here.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, the love of that structure, I just got drawn straight right into it. I had been coaching people for a number of years on both life coaching, and that was more cookie cutter. So it's like, here's a curriculum you need to take your client through. They need to, they need to know their values. They need to know this, they need to know that, because obviously it was all about fixing them and then trying to align that to what they thought they wanted to create. And also business coaching, because I did build a really successful practice. I had one of the busiest practices in the world, particularly as a solo female practitioner. So I had other chiropractors asking, oh, how did you do that? What were you doing? And that sort of thing. And that was great. But again, it was about problem solving and dilemma resolving. And it was hard work, right? And then once I embraced the new structure, I just fell in love with it. I went, that's where my coaching has to go. That's what has to happen now. And so, these days you couldn't pay me enough to go back to the old way of coaching. There's just no way. Yeah. So it is a bit strange. I have to sit here and use my intuition all day. I have to drop into daydreaming mode rather than, oh, okay, what's the right answer? Have I got a book for that? Have I got something, that I can refer to and have evidence to back that up? But I sit in intuition all day and I get much more wise information than I was ever getting from just using books all the time. That's not to say I deny all my academic education, because sometimes it's handy that it just pops in and I go, oh, I need to talk about that, and I know how to talk about it. It's a tool I get to use rather than it being the thing that dictates how we're going to actually create an outcome for somebody else. So it works brilliantly, and every client's different, and I love that. And I love tuning into everybody's different things that they're going for and the different essences they have for each of the facets of their life and how amazing that is, and to be able to help them to open that up. So that's what I love about what I do.
Oh, so good. So good. So it must have been quite a shift for you to go from having such an academic science background to then going into utilizing your intuition so much. And because on face value, you might assume that they're two very different things in two different worlds. Can you talk a little bit more about that shift and the connection there for you?
Yeah. Okay. So it's probably I guess the thing that jumps to my mind as you ask that question, the first time I used my intuition to do a reading, which was actually in one of William's workshops. It's called Create Your Destiny. And it was live back then. Like at the moment, because of COVID, we've been doing it all online the last 12 months. But I remember going into that first workshop and being told to sit in a circle with a bunch of other people and to take turns at tuning into them and giving them some information. And I'm like, oh, no idea how I'm going to do this. This is ridiculous. What's this tuning in thing? I've never even met this person. How am I going to say anything of any value to them and all this? Yeah, crazy, right? Anyway, so my first experience with that is I did a reading for a lady, and it was what we call a current reality reading, and it's about what's keeping you stuck. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to have to make it up. Now, turns out that's actually the right thing to do. Just make it up. And what I was blown away by was what I was watching myself saying. I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying this stuff. I told her about, she's held herself back in loyalty to a friend that she lost when she was younger. I could even tell her it was a really close girlfriend and all this stuff. I'm not a psychic medium. What is this bullshit? I'm not here to tell you what your grandma, from 3 generations back wants to hand you. I'm not a medium. Yeah. Anyway, so I've told her all this stuff and how it was holding her back and all this sort of thing. And at the end, we got feedback, and she's just like, she's gone around the group, and then she's just go, now that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what was going on. I can't believe how much she nailed it. And I just went, okay, there's something in this. There's just something in this, because I was seeing pictures and I was getting symbols, and I was like, okay, there's got to be something, so I've got to explore it more. And I'm a naturally curious person, so to explore it more, that in itself was basically divine intervention for me to do that very first reading and to have that experience and to go, holy shit, there we go. There's something more here to explore I've never experienced before. So yeah.
There's
So there we go.
In there, isn't there? There's so much more in there than we realize, and fascinating when it lands for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, what?
That
thing that just occurred to me about you is real? What?
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. And when you look at the science behind it, if you look at the science, there's things like, the thing that the quote that everybody loves is that, our nervous system is taking in 40 billion bits of information per second. And if you think about what your computer has, it's got nowhere near that. Like, it doesn't have that capacity. So if your brain is taking in 40 billion bits of information per second, and we can only cope with the awareness of about 2,000 bits of information. So it's tiny, because 40,000 bits is it's tons. Actually, it's 40 billion bits. I'm sorry. So 40 billion is 40,000 million bits of information per second. That's a heck of a lot of information coming into our brain every second. We get awareness with 2 because that's all we can cope with. Yeah. So it makes sense. There's a lot going on and a lot of stuff that we could have awareness to, and things like our intuition, things like getting information from other people's superconsciousness is what we call it. That would just make sense that we could do that, but we've told ourselves we can't. It's got to come from what we already know, or what we've already experienced in life. So, and we have lots of beliefs that we're running that filter everything that comes through those 2,000 bits of awareness. So not only are we getting the 2,000 bits, but we're also filtering it. We're making it in a certain way so we can perceive it quickly and efficiently. Yeah, seems a little bit strange. We're missing out on a massive realm of what else is out there. So
much. Like, we're just sticking to what we know, and we're like, yep, that's the truth of it. Meanwhile, there's all this other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's even someone like me don't necessarily, live by it all the time. I was just talking to Craig at Brecky this morning and just said, he said, have you made a decision about X, Y, Z? I said, no, I haven't yet. And he said, well, have you tuned into it? And I said, no. I said, there's too many things to consider. And he just laughs at me, because it's like, where's that coming from? That's going to come through me trying to think it through with my limited and very filtered 2,000 bits of information per second. So later on today, guess what Linda's going to be doing? She's going to be definitely sitting with that, because it's a big decision. And I want to make sure that, I don't even need to make sure it's the right thing, because you know what? Even if it's wrong, I'll be able to create the structure to get myself out of it or into something that I'd really love. So I don't have the fear around it, but I'd love the next experience to be incredible, an amazing unfolding of what's coming next. So that's what Linda will be doing later on today, sitting in a circle, focused on that one thing and just tuning in and just free writing about what I get. And from there, I'll know what's happening. So yeah. There you go.
Powerful stuff. It must be good and confronting and just interesting having your partner be doing the same work as you, so you can have different conversations, or maybe he can call you out or ask different questions than someone that's not involved in the same work. What's that like at home for you guys?
Oh, it's really cool. It is. I mean, initially it was actually really frustrating, because there's nothing worse than getting coached by your spouse. And I'm sure Craig would say exactly the same thing. Just stop coaching me. I don't want to know. Just stop it. But then, it is great to be using the work and to be coming through with things and not be questioned about it, because whatever decision that I come up with from sitting in the circle and tuning in with that today, he's not going to say, oh yeah, but what about blah blah blah. He's just going to go, yeah, well, that's what you got, so that's what we're doing. Because it's going to affect his life as well. So that's what we're doing. Okay, great. Let's do that. So I find it a brilliant thing, and just to have that level of understanding between us. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, anyone can fulfill this path, and their spouse doesn't have to. It's just, we don't worry about circumstances when we're creating in this structure. We don't have to have sets of conditions that actually meet certain criteria, whereas in the past it would be like, oh well, I'll be able to do that when I have enough money, or I'll be able to do that when I have the right spouse, or I'll be able to have that when all these things that we egoically think must happen first before we can have X, Y, Z. It's actually wrong. It's not the case at all. We just need to focus on what it is we love. And so for the two of us, understanding that's really amazing. But if your spouse doesn't want to, and I've got lots of clients who they're deep in this work and their spouse isn't interested at all, and even questions them and challenges them at times. But now they've learned to see that that's just a circumstance, and I just acknowledge that as part of my current reality, and I'm still focusing on what I love as a creator. Nobody can stop me creating the outcomes that I want to create. I love him very much, don't want to get rid of him, and I'm still going to focus on what's going on for me in my heart and following that. So it's not necessarily you make sure your partner knows this work and works with you in the same way. I'm just really lucky in the way that it unfolded for me that Craig was already doing the work with William before I came along. How cool is that? It's like, oh, and I was the resistant one.
Yeah, right, of course.
And in the early days, I was the one that stopped doing choices, and I was the one that dropped off the thing. I'm like, nah, I've got important work to do. It's more important that I build this business first. I got stuck in the circumstances and all that sort of thing. So, but now that we're, well and truly several years down the track now with us both fully, I'm in 100%. It's amazing. It's an incredible way to be, unfolding our lives and just working the magic together. I love it.
For sure. And both of you energetically focusing, going in a direction. Does that kind of...
At times, we have our own separate choices, but then we've got a couple of joint choices as well, where we work together on certain things. We've actually got a few clients who they are husband and wife, and they are going through the work together, which is really interesting because Craig will usually be coaching the male spouse, and I'll usually be coaching the female spouse. And then we also have a session where we come together and we work on common choices for them. So just things like legacy. Well, how cool would it be for a couple to be orientated to what legacy they're leaving behind, whether it's just for their family and their kids, or what it is that they're creating outside of just the home. It's what an orientation to be conducting a union with. It's just an incredible different way of being in the world.
Absolutely beautiful way to work with your partner. I love that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So it gives you something beyond just the paying of the bills and the getting the responsible things done and looking after the kids and all that. And you'll still get all that done, and you'll have a higher focus. It just keeps all that very small. It's not a big part of your life. It's not all consuming. It's not something that requires ongoing attention, because you've got something bigger that you're going for, either as an individual or yourself. So
yeah, so much better. So much growth together, and you have something outside of all the day-to-day stuff that you're really building and doing together. Right? So good. Love it.
Yeah,
love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Share a little bit about what discovering William's work and why that's been the thing. Once you've discovered it, going, I am not going back. This is changed something for me. Can you share a little bit about discovering it and why this has been different?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously the discovery came through Craig, because when we first started dating, I was actually running a really busy, and yet again, another big busy business. So, I was running what was that?
You're such a boss babe, Linda.
So a friend of mine and I, we just partnered up and we just opened Bonfire, which is a hot yoga, chiropractic yoga and massage sort of centre. And we'd opened it in Jindalee. We had another one that had just opened in Browns Plains, about to open in Aspley, and we had opened on the Gold Coast as well. So we were going everywhere. Wow. We had a lot going on. And anyway, interestingly enough, I had wanted to be dating, but I took myself off the internet dating thing, because I'm like, so sick of having really bad dates, and I'm obviously not, I'm not attracting the right person. That was my mindset back then. Anyway, so this guy keeps rocking up to my yoga studio and coming to my yoga classes, and then starts, hanging around. I'm like, hang on a minute. Anyway, so long story short, he ends up, he for some reason we were texting, and he was in the middle of a William Whitecloud event down at Byron Bay, and I was up in Brisbane, and I said, and he texted me and said, why don't you come down for dinner? I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I finish at 6. It's going to take me 2 hours to get there, but yeah, if you're up for it at 8 o'clock, I'll be there. So I drove down to Byron Bay. Anyway, he started talking to me about the work, and it was just like, wow, that's really interesting. It's different. I've never heard anything like that before. And then my natural cynic jumped in and goes, oh yeah, but I've already done this and I've already done that, and Tony Robbins was way cooler. He's this guy's only got 40, 50 people here. Tony is good to have at that stage, a few thousand, right? Yeah. So, that was ridiculous, right? So I sort of left it to the side, but when we got together, I started to explore, and I went to a couple of the workshops early on, which were different then. It was a different program, and I started playing with the choices and things. But again, my cynic just keeps jumping in there, and eventually it was just like, oh, I'm too busy. I've got businesses to build, and there was some dynamic shifts going on in there, and I just got really bogged down into that. And essentially, there was a point a couple of years later where I hit an existential crisis with that. It basically, I had created a situation where I put myself in complete conflict with who I believed I should be in the world. I was seen as out of integrity. I was seen as not successful, or in fact a complete failure. And a lot of these definitions I was placing on myself, but they were still there, right? So this massive existential crisis. It was like, I don't even know if I belong in the world anymore. And then I'm like, shit, this is not good. I got 3 kids. Craig was still there, so I had a spouse, and he's got 2 kids as well. So between us, we've got 5. How do you come to that decision of I don't think I should be in the world anymore? That's not great. That's not a great place to be. So it was a matter of again, synchronicity. A Facebook ad came across my thing about William coming back into Australia to do Create Your Destiny live again. And I'm like, holy shit, that I haven't seen anything from him for a really long time, even though we'd actually been friends on Facebook for quite a long time. Hadn't seen anything. I knew he was doing things in LA and all that sort of thing. And I just said to Craig, we've got to go. She said, we're going to that. And he's like, oh, I don't think we can really afford it, because we really, I'm seriously, our existential crisis was a crisis. And I said, I don't care. Let's just we've got to do it. We've got to go. And so we went, and it just, and from that point forward, it was like, no, we are not going to go back to the old way of living. We're not going back to being unconscious. We're not going to go back to try to be the smart ones, the fixing ourselves ones. We're going to live by creative tension and structure from here on in, and that's it. One of the things that really pushed me across the line was that while I was at that event, there was a guy there who had been doing the work when I first met Craig years before, and at that stage he was battling lymphoma, and quite badly. It was right, he's quite down the track with it, and being given the old death sentence. You've got X amount of months to live. His wife was doing the work as well, and he's standing up there saying, I just chose that I was going for my health and vitality. He said, I even took myself off the drugs. I stopped doing, not that I would advise anyone to do that, but that was what he got. Come off the drugs, just focus on your health, look after yourself, and focus and use your focus regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what the doctors were telling you. And he stood there and he said, and here I am all these years later, I'm here, and there's nothing wrong with me. I'm back to normal. And his wife was, she was over the moon, obviously, and all that sort of thing. And I went, shit, if it can work for something like that, surely it can help me put my life back together from where I currently stand, which looks hopeless. And so from then that was it. It became non-discretionary. It became doing the work, living the work. I had no inkling to be a coach in it whatsoever. That just sort of came up a couple of years later when I just realized, here I am coaching this way, and this is what I really need to be doing. I'm just completely, poles apart. I've got to come out from under the shell and actually say, I'm an intuitive coach. I coach intuitively. I can't just hide behind the textbooks anymore. I've got to do that. And it's shifted. I've got a guy who I've coached for, I don't know how long now. Jace has been around with me for a really long time. And my coaching shifted, and he's still there. And he's like, I love this. This is awesome. What I'm creating now is, much better than what I had before. So, yeah. So there you go. Did I answer your question? It's just another story.
For sure. For sure. It's like you're taking people along on the evolution of Linda. They get taken along as well.
Oh, God. Sorry, guys.
No, it's phenomenal. Do you know one of the things that I love about working with you is that there's just no bullshit. You just you have a way to just draw things out and just call things that you see and that are there. And I think that's been annoying sometimes. But a blessing, nice to just be able to be like, oh yeah, okay, that's in me. Thanks for drawing that out.
Yeah, that's a natural gift and talent, I think.
Yeah, there's just I don't know. I've definitely worked with coaches before that it's just a different energy, but with you, there's just a genuine, authentic kind of no bullshit way about it, but it's really endearing, and I just love it. It's been such a journey working together.
Well, I think the other important thing with that is that, but now when I'm coaching, it's not about me. It's about what I'm getting, and it's about the work and the structure. Because if I can keep you in that, then you're going to get your outcomes. Even if by accident, you are going to get your outcomes if I can keep you in that. But if in the past where I've been, I've got to get this right so this client's happy, so that then they'll stay with me and they'll do. That was a lot more about me, and therefore, I'd have to be a little bit tiptoey. I'd have to be a little bit, how am I going to phrase this so they're not going to get upset and all this sort of thing, because I don't want them angry at me. But it's not about me. It's about what I get for you. I'm just a conduit to your own super consciousness, because it's quite hard to see what's true for you when you're in your own shit. It really is. Even for me, it's a blessing for me to get a reading from somebody else, because I can't necessarily see as clearly as they can, because they don't have to deal with what's going on for me egoically. So that's why it's just true to the work to not put myself in it, and just to be there and say, oh, this is what's actually going on. I'm just going to call that. That is where you're at and what you do and who you are, and, when you're in your ego, when you're in unconscious. But what you'd really love is this. So,
amazing. Yeah. Would you say that everyone is intuitive, or that this is kind of work that everyone can do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and you will have observed even in things like our Life Raft program, where people come and they practice their intuition and all that sort of thing. There's people in there that, all walks of life that come in and practice that. But I guess it's like any skill. It's like, you're a good footy player, right? I could probably kick the footy, but probably, and probably kick it a long way, because I've got those big footy legs, but I'm not trained in any way, shape or form. But, but you've got a natural talent in that, right? So you do well at it. I could get around on the field, but I'm not going to necessarily do really any good at the game. So I'm probably not going to make it into any echelons there. So, but I can still kick, and I can still run, and I can still catch to a degree. Get it. So yeah, we've all got it. We definitely do, but it's just there's different strengths in it, and and it can be developed, because maybe if I trained, I could play footy as well as you. Well, although I'm a little bit older than you.
So it's like, I'm thinking about what I love that you've shared a few times throughout the chat is that what's different about this work again is there's not like, we're not here trying to fix stuff. And it's such a relief. Like, we've spent so much time trying to fix things, and like, I can't be that way, or I can't do that anymore. Whereas this is just acknowledging and going, cool, that's happening, and I'm going to focus here. I imagine you just like people are just feeling relieved about that, and more energy can be spent on the things we want to create.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. How liberating is it to know that, one, you're not broken, that you're whole, that you've got all your answers sitting in that awareness that you're not aware of just yet, and that you can have access to it. It's so good. Like, if you, for those people who are running around trying to I'll have more money when I feel more worthy. And then you realize that's actually not true. There's plenty of people who have worthiness issues and have a shit ton of money. It's good. It's irrelevant who you are and your identity. It really is. So it's important that we stop circling the drain and focusing on the wrong thing, and to actually just go for what we love. That's irrelevant, but you can waste your whole lifetime trying to fix yourself, or your perceived flaws about yourself, or perceived flaws about your life. And it's not true. All that's true for you is what's true for your heart, and what's obvious to how to get there. What's the next step? What do I need to do? That's irrelevant. Fixing yourself is not a next step. It never is. It's
Thank God for that.
God. Yeah, absolutely. And that's why all those years of PD for me, I'd go in there and I'd learn about my values, and I'd go, okay, now I need to live in alignment with my values, not realizing my values came from egoic stories of what I perceived was missing when I was a kid, right? So, and of course, then you get fulfilled to a degree while you're living your values, but it always feels like there's something missing. There's something not quite right. And then I'd go to personal development. I'd learn how to clear my limiting beliefs, and I'd clear my limiting beliefs. And then I'd come up, and then 3 months later, shit, I'm back in those limiting beliefs again. But they're there forever. Like, all I need to do is acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling powerless right now. That's something that, I inherited when I was 4. So, okay, I feel it, and I still love to do that. So I'm going to go and do that. Well, what's obvious? How do I take my steps to that? So the fixing thing is a very big industry, by the way, massive industry. Pretty much every PD course out there is a fixing orientation, and therefore has you circling the drain forever. And it works well for them because they know that you're going to be back soon to have some more programming or some more fixing or another tool.
No fix.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I guess, and I'm not a psychotherapist, but I'm guessing that's a similar thing there too. It's like, oh, well, let's have a look at the, we just look deeper into what you need to fix about yourself and how you need to control yourself and make sure you don't fall into that again. Well, no, you don't. Just go, yep, I'm an asshole and I still want to create some great things in my life.
I can be an asshole and still create. Like, I mean, too long, but that's possible.
You might not want to be an asshole, but then don't focus on trying to fix that. Try and focus on what it is you are going to create in the world that's going to be of value to the world. So, that really it's irrelevant.
For sure. Hey, I reckon you must have seen some pretty phenomenal creations come into this world. Are you able to share a little bit about some of the stuff you've seen? I mean, wow. Where would one start?
I don't even know where to start. Let's just start with something way out. So when I had one of my very first, someone did a reading on me, what we call a greatness reading. So when someone did one of those on me, the first one, they came up and said, "Oh, I can see you're a painter. You love to paint." And I'm like, I am not artistic at all. Like, my brother's great. He can draw these awesome cartoons and and my cousin, he's amazing. But not me. No, not at all. And then I had another reading not that long later, and someone else said, "Oh, I can see art. Yes, you're a painter." And I'm like, bloody painter. I'm not a friggin' painter. What's all this art thing going on? Anyway, I thought, all right, I'm curious. I'm going to play with some paint and see what happens. And turns out I am a painter. Turns out I can throw some paint on canvas. And I don't care if anyone else doesn't like it or I like it. I've got work just over here. Here we go. It's probably what you don't want. There's my lilies. They're almost done. So, so there's all sorts of different things that sort of come through in my artwork and all that sort of stuff. I just do it for me and I love it. So yeah, it's just one of those things. Yeah.
Amazing.
So there you go. So there's that. So there's hidden things that you don't know about yourself. There's hidden creations that you have no idea that that's what your heart would really love to do. What else? Crikey. The list is too big. You should have pre-prepared me with this question because it's just so many things.
It just came to me.
No, well, we have to go with it then, don't we?
Exactly.
Just dropped in, so we're going to go with it. So things like even where I ended up with COVID, let's say. So I was doing my choices one day. I was living up on the Gold Coast and I was a little bit frustrated with the Gold Coast. It's got really busy up there. I don't know if you've noticed, if you've been up there in any time soon, but it's got really busy. Everyone in the world's moved up there, and I first moved up there 22 years ago. So it's a fair while ago. Actually 23 years ago. But anyway, so I was up there and I'm like, I'm getting a bit frustrated and the work situation I'm not feeling the love for that anymore and that sort of thing. And I was standing in a circle aiming through some of my choices actually to do with growing my coaching business. And I got this thing about call Angela. I'm like, Angela Todd. What do I call Angela for? Okay, I'm going to call Angela. And I rang Angela and she said, oh, by the way, and mind you, I haven't spoken to Angela in like 25 years, since I was a student at university.
Wow.
So it's a really long time. We're acquaintances on Facebook and we've got lots of mutual friends and all that sort of thing, but we really haven't had much of a word. Anyway, we're chatting away like great old mates, like you do with someone you haven't spoken to for a while sometimes. And she said, oh, by the way, do you know anyone who would like to take up a position in cows on Phillip Island? And I went, oh, I actually think I might want to do that because my mum's down there, and ended up moving into mum's place last February. And then COVID happened, right? But the cool thing was I was able to keep working because I was in a regional area. It's a great little practice. It wasn't high volume like I was doing before. And so my body's had a beautiful chance to recover. I've had an elective surgery take place down here, which I wasn't going to happen in Queensland for a really long time, but it's happened and it's in the rearview mirror now. And I got to stay with mum while COVID went on. Well, all that lockdown and all that sort of stuff and Craig's been here as well. And, he's been motoring away. And in the meantime, our coaching business has taken off it was busy before, but now it's like, oh, this is awesome. This is our thing. So that was a result of just going with, call Angela. Like, how nervous do you reckon you feel when you get this thing about call this person you hardly even know, you don't even really know why you're calling them, and you're just giving them a phone call out of the blue, right? How nervous would you be? I can tell you, pretty bloody nervous. I'm like, no, maybe I'll just send her a text, and I'm like, no, you got phone, ring her. So, and I never ring anybody. So it's like, okay, I'm going to ring her, and here we are having this conversation. And now we catch up every couple of weeks, and we go and have lunch and coffee and all this sort of stuff. So we've got the friendship out of it as well. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. So there you go. So that's one example, just off the top of my head, about what's going on. Oh, and then there's going to be another unfolding out of this very, very soon, which I'll let everyone know about in the next few weeks, which will be really cool.
Watch this space.
Watch this space. Yeah, ever evolving. It's going to be really cool.
That's so much that came from that, like, just that download of intuition. So much. Yeah, that's what opened up from that.
Yeah, you just don't know. You get these little steps, these little inklings, and you just go with it, and then it's like the universe opens up, and you just don't realize how much has been going on in the background. Because you think about even that, if you think about the logistics of that, the person that was leaving that practice and the frustration that Angela was facing, not having someone in to fill that role that she wanted in there, and blah, blah, blah. And, we didn't know COVID was going to happen last November, or the November before last, when I actually made the phone call, So there was no inkling of any of that coming together in that way. And it did.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So many dynamics in there for that to for it to go that way, and then for all the things to open up as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine trying to figure that out.
Oh, my goodness. Would you say that we're all getting around with all of these ideas dropping in all the time, but we don't listen, or we don't?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So things are coming into us all the time. First of all, we're not really aware of it because we're focusing on all the really important things like paying the bills and all that sort of thing. I'm not saying don't pay your bills, but I'm saying, that's what we're focusing on. We're focusing on being the adult and being responsible in the world and all that sort of stuff. So we're missing them. The other thing is when they come in, they're quite volatile. So they sort of drop in and they disappear. So I don't know if you've had that experience where something, that's a really good idea, and then you don't write it down, then later on the day you're like, what was that awesome idea? I really want that. Come back to me.
Been there for sure.
Yeah. So you actually become a master at capturing these things, so whether you've got notes on your phone or voice messages or voice memos, or writing it down in my diary and stuff. So I've got notes everywhere. I've organized them now because I know how precious they are. They're like little gems along the way. But they're giving you the clues, they're giving you the breadcrumbs to get to what it is that you love, but we're just dismissing them, or we just go, that's not important, or your ego jumps in there and goes, that's too scary, I wouldn't do that. I'm not calling Angela. Why would I do that? It's too scary. God damn it, I haven't spoken to her in 25 years. Who's she? Don't even know why I'm calling it.
Yeah,
hey, how you going? You might not remember me from 25 years ago. But there you go. So all that stuff is easily dismissed. It's easily dismissed as, that's not important. That's not something that I want to do.
Yeah. I know for myself, I'm sure other people would resonate too, that you have that brilliant idea and you kind of go, oh yeah, that's a great idea, but all the stuff, I can't do it, or maybe not, or it's not that great of an idea. But then it continues to come back. It doesn't really go?
No. Well, eventually it will. I've noticed this too. They do go away. And then guess what? They turn up, someone else has created it. And you go, that was my idea. Damn it. And I think we've all had that experience to some degree where it's like, hey, I thought of that. That was my idea. How come, they get all the glory for it, that sort of thing. So, brilliant. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah. And William, I've heard him share, quite a few times with this work that it's a second chance at life. Has that been your experience, or do you resonate with when he shares that as well?
So much. Yeah, definitely. It really is. As I said, when we embraced it fully, it was because there was an existential crisis. And that wasn't my first existential crisis. I had a lot. Of my life, if you mapped it out, there's lots of roller coastering, and some bigger than others, right? But since really embracing it, that doesn't happen anymore. You know, it's just so easy to keep things very, you know, on track and on plane, and to be moving in the right direction. Doesn't mean that problems don't show up, but they show up in a different way now. It's like, okay, either it's a quality problem, so it's like, oh well, it's not quite this yet, but the quality problem would be, do I take the helicopter or the limo? Or, you know, but I don't quite have that level.
The problem, the quality. You know,
that's a quality problem, as opposed to how am I going to eat tomorrow, sort of thing. But also that when something does come up, I don't get straight into reactionary mode anymore. I would normally go, right, I've got to fix this. You know, this cannot exist in the way that it is. Blah, 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 I've got to fix it, whatever it is. And I'll just go, you know, tooth and nail to get the problem sorted out, which usually ends up being more of a problem. So now when something comes up, I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. First of all, I'm going to acknowledge that, you know, I've created that. And I know that sounds a little bit woo-woo again, but really, it's probably because of my dysfunctional formation I ended up here in the first place. So let's just acknowledge that. Don't have to work out how or why, but just that's probably what it is. But then also, okay, now I see this problem, but what would I really love? You know, and I try to focus on something that's not just the solution to the problem, but something even better. So I might have a problem with, let's see, well, let's use money. Let's say I got a big bill come in, and I'm like, oh, geez, how's that going to... how am I going to sort that out? And, you know, I'm going to have to find money for that sort of thing. So that's your solution to your problem, is trying to figure out how to get enough money to make up for the deficit, right? But what if I went, what I'd love is just to be really, you know, in my flow of abundance, if really that feeling, that sense of abundance and flow, and that, you know, that's what I'd really love. I don't want to have to be just making bills pop up and then get paid. Oh, that's great that they got paid, but it would be even better if I'm just in that sense of I'm always in my abundant flows. There's abundance and opportunity everywhere. It's just who I am. And so if I focus on that, it's instantly an easier state to feel into. It's just like, oh, so much more exciting than how much is going to cover this bill, you know, and get that done. But also, because it's a higher vibration than what we're focusing on the same level, it just pops up obvious things and obvious situations that just occur. And I've found from that point forward that things just unfold for me, and it'll be things that aren't even my job. People will come to me and say, hey, I actually owe you some money that you forgot about. Oh, okay, great. How would you like to deposit that into my bank account right now? You know, so things like that, which again, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it does happen. So, I can tell you the story about my unit, right? I needed to sell, I needed $80,000. So a big bill, right? And I didn't have $80,000, and it was all invested in my other business, and I needed to buy someone out of that business. And so that $80,000 was required. And I actually had a commercial unit that I'd forgotten about a couple of suburbs away. It was only a little tiny office and that sort of stuff. And out of the blue, this guy rings me and says, do you want to sell your unit? And I said, oh, yeah, that was on the market a few years ago. I took it off because I couldn't be bothered with nothing happening with it. So I took it off. And he goes, yeah, well, we don't need to involve a real estate agent because I've already got a license in this, this, and this. So we'll save fees on all of that. And I went home, did my maths on what he offered me. And guess what was left over? 80 grand. That's all I wanted. There we go. Boom. You know, and these are sort of stories that you hear and you go, oh, that's you. That's, you know, but it can happen for anybody. You know, I'm not any more special than you or anybody else. I'm just holding my focus. What would I love? I love to have the freedom of being in that business without the encumbrances of the other business partner who wants 80 grand to be bought out. Boom. There we go. It wasn't my job to work out how. Yeah, and I could have got logical on it and tried to force it and be back on the market with a real estate agent and all that sort of stuff, and it probably wouldn't have worked out. But I just sat with, what would I love? And then, you know, these things happen. That part wasn't my job.
Opens up. Just the universe just opens up.
Absolutely. And it was the easiest sale I've ever done of any property because I didn't have to do anything. He rang me, he organised all the contracts and the paperwork, I signed across and he paid the money and boom, we're done.
Love it. Are you still get surprised or shocked when things like unfold the way they do, or when things happen and you're like, is it still?
It's more now. I'm just curious how this is going to happen. Like, I'm just curious because I know it is. So it's just like I'm really curious, and not to say that when it does unfold that we don't do some high fives and some fist pumps and stuff like that. We do because we want to acknowledge, hey, there we go. The magic worked. We held our focus on what we were going for. We created the outcome. yeah, let's acknowledge that, because that provides more evidence against the ego that wants to say, nah, that's just bullshit. That was going to happen anyway, or anything else it wants to do to play it down. I'm still going to take the evidence of what actually happened and go, yep, boom, let's celebrate that, because I want more of that. I don't want so much of that egoic involvement in my outcomes. I really want to just be working with structure and holding my focus, and that's all I need to do. Yeah.
There's such a different energy when you talk about it, and when we like then going, well, that's the thing I want, I'm going to try and figure it all out along the way, versus going, well, that's what I want, what would I love, how do I get there? It's entirely
absolutely. Yeah, you can definitely feel that, you know, if you're just going, okay, I've got something I want to create, how do I figure it out? It feels heavy. It feels like overwhelming, so many steps, and I don't know. I don't have enough resources, or I don't have enough knowledge, or I'm going to have to keep preparing, or I'm not strong enough to do that, or whatever all those beliefs are. You sit in the circle with that in relation to what you're trying to go for, as if you just go, I don't know, I'm just going to go for it. You know, if that's what I love. I don't know how, and I don't have to. It's so much lighter, so much more liberating, and it's amazing. So,
it is amazing.
Yeah. So it's just fun. So has life changed? It's just a lot more fun.
Absolutely. It is completely life-changing. Life-changing. Thank you so very much for coming on and sharing yourself and your work and a bit about your story. I know that it will be very, very enlightening for a lot of people. So I appreciate that you've come on and that I get to
thanks for having me.
Share your message.
Great. Well, it's been fun.